Today we are making corned beef and cabbage. Here are the ingredients that you need to make. Cabbage. Orange carrots. Potatoes. Onions. Cabbage. Celery. Beef sauce. Garlic powder. Beef broth. And corned beef.
Woo!
First, we're going to peel the potatoes.
Thank you, Chloe, for telling us about the ingredients. Now we're going to start the preparation for making our corned beef and cabbage. So, this is a pretty easy recipe. I don't know where I got this one from, but I think from my mom when I was a kid. We used to have this, and it's pretty simple to make. We're just going to make it in a crock pot. It's not something you're going to make and have for dinner today, so we're going to make it now for tomorrow. It'll probably make, 16 servings. I mean, it's probably enough for lunches and dinner for 4 people for 2 days. So like I said, it's pretty simple to do it. It just takes a long time to do it. You're probably going to let it cook for a day, and then you could let it sit on here out on warm in the crock pot for another day until it was gone. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take this beef stock. So I'm going to add the beef stock. Oh, that looks way better than that last batch. Okay, so we're going to add our beef stock. And we're just going to put our crock pot on high for now. Alright. More beautiful sounds of the kitchen. So here we go. We're going to just dump all our carrots in because these are already pre-peeled baby carrots. They're super simple. We'll just dump those suckers right on in there. Get those cooking. We're going to take our onions. I'm just going to cut the ends off. Take the outside skin off, and I just usually cut them like that and just peel that whole outside layer off. It's just way easier than picking at the skins and dealing with that whole deal. So then I'm just going to take my onion. There's a lot of ways to cut onions. You know, I cut onions different for sandwiches, for different kind of sauces. You know, like you could puree them, you can dice them, you can make them into chunks for tacos, you can have little rounds, you can slice them really thin for sandwiches, but for this I'm gonna just make, I'm just gonna cut them kind of like a pizza, and it's just gonna make little like wedges, is I guess what we'll call them. And this is great for this because it looks nice in my opinion, and it cooks them kind of more evenly, like because you're gonna cook them over days. You don't want something that's really tiny or they're just gonna disappear in your food. They're still gonna shrink up a lot because onions are mostly water. So same thing. I'm just gonna.
And something that I learned that, I want my kids to know, so listen up. This, when you take off the lid, it's going to leave a hole, and it's going to automatically peel the foil. So the first time I did this, I went through 3 boxes of this kind of broth. So just know that it's going to automatically peel this when you take the lid off.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought that too. I thought it was like, oh, did somebody get in this, or is this like some rotten thing that we left in the cabinet?
Right, I've heard a lot of other people do that too.
Okay, so we got our onions all diced up here. We're gonna dump them in there really quick. All right. And the next thing we're gonna do
is celery.
Is celery. Thank you, Chloe. Yep. Now I'm going to cut the tops of those little nasty ends off. This is already pre-cut celery. that, the ends off, and then we're gonna take them over and wash them.
One.
Okay, so now that we have our celery washed, this is kind of a chunky dish like stew, so it's like just like with the carrots and the onions, I'm gonna kind of make it into bigger pieces, and so I don't want to cut it really small, like I said, just so it doesn't completely disappear in the food. So I'm just gonna put it all together like in a big bunch. I'm not gonna cut it one at a time, just like with most things that I do. And it's just faster and it's easier. And there you go. Take out those big chunks, take out some of these leaves because they're nasty. I'm gonna leave some of them because they kind of look good in the food. I'll just dump that right on in there. Just like that. I'm just gonna show everybody here how to peel a potato. I mean, it seems like a super simple thing, but I don't know if you're just hacking at it. But what I do is I don't peel away from me, I peel towards me. And the reason I do that is I can make it one big strip. So I'd start at the very top, I'd go all the way down to the end, and just kind of like a typewriter, I would go all the way around the potato and just get enough, and I can get it all in one shot. I don't go back over it really. And it's nice, clean, chick.
Seems very fast.
And that's, you're done.
I peeled all the potatoes, now it's time to go wash them.
Okay, so now we're gonna prepare the corned beef. What I need to do is basically take this thing out. What I'm gonna do is, it's a corned beef, so it has a seasoning packet. It says on the outside, corned beef. You can also just get the beef brisket, but then you have to make the seasoning stuff, and I find it easier, it's about the same price, just to do the corned beef. I'll add some other stuff like garlic powder, and I'll actually add garlic too into this, but that's what you need to get. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my knife, I am just going to cut a little slit through the corned beef. I'm going to take it over here to our very messy sink, and I'm just going to drain all the juices out of it. As much as I can possibly get.
Here's our very colorful, full crock pot, which my sister got me, and it's the best present I think I've ever received as a crock pot. It serves a lot of meals, it keeps your food really nice. If you get late night munchies, or if you're feeling hungry during the day, it's always warm, you don't have to reheat it. I love the crock pot more than anything.
Oh, and
thank you, sister.
Okay, so I drained my corned beef. I'm going to take out the seasoning packet, kind of lay it aside. This is the seasoning packet that comes with it. Make sure you grab it before you sear your meat. Now, I'm going to sear my meat.
What does sear mean?
Sear means I'm not going to cook it, but I'm going to get a really, really hot pan on the stove. I'm going to put some oil in it. I don't know if you know, but like different oils have different flash points. The flash point is like how hot that oil can get before it starts to smoke. You don't want to use an olive oil because it has a really low flash point. You want to use vegetable oil because the flash point is higher. It's like 550 degrees versus 350 degrees. And so what I'm going to try to do here is, what I am going to do here is I'm going to get my pan super hot. I'm just going to smack it down on the pan, and it's going to kind of burn the outside of the meat. Not exactly burn, but brown the outside of the meat in just maybe 30 seconds on each side. And what that's going to do is, even though I'm going to put it in here, what it'll do is it'll seal the meat and keep the juices as much as possible inside the meat instead of them leaking out and you having a really dry meat. And anytime you cook a roast or anything like that, you should always sear it because otherwise it's not gonna really hold the juices. So that's what I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna take it over there and I'm going to sear this sucker. So I got my pan going on high, so when I put this on here, it'll be hot already. Get a little oil. I'm gonna just get that around in my pan, and it's as hot because this grill gets hot. So just throw it on there really quick. And if you notice, that was quite hot.
How long do we leave it on there?
I'm just gonna leave it on here for just like I said, maybe like 30 seconds, and then I'm gonna flip it.
What's the best tool to flip it with?
It doesn't matter. Right? You can use a spatula. You could use a fork. And I'm just gonna use a fork, so I'm just gonna give that count down. Flip that sucker over. And if you notice, it just got a little bit of brown on the outside. And that would be searing your meat. And so now do the other thing. Since the other side had quite a bit of fat on it, I'm going to give it like a little bit more time on the other side.
Why do you do that? Because it had more fat?
Just because the fat is like a little bit, it takes longer to do it than the meat. The meat will just almost instantly sear the fat and the meat cook through for a second so that it, gets to the meat. Okay, so now I've got my corned beef and it's seared. So I'm just going to dump that in my pot. When I'm going to run out of room, we got a lot of stuff in here. Flying vegetables. Okay, so we get some of those out of the way. Get that down in the juice here. Whew. We need a bigger crock pot. So now we have that in there. And because we have no room left, we're going to have to cook some stuff separately. So anyway, let's put our flavor package in. Pour that in. And this is just like coriander, pepper seeds, some other spices.
Now we're going to use the cabbage. Here you go, Phil.
Okay, so with the cabbage, all I'm going to do here is I'm going to just remove the outside couple leaves. That's how I'm going to clean it. That's all you need to do here. And Chloe's going to help me kind of like unwrapping a present.
Now, how do you know how far to do that? Like, why? What's the purpose? Why are you doing this?
Just like getting all the fertilizer and anything dirty on the outside off. I'm taking off the leaves that have any rot on them, and then now it's nice and
just like
nice
this leaf that we pulled off
clean.
before.
Yeah, it's like got little holes, but now it's nice, clean, and perfect, whatever. So now it's like super simple. I'm just gonna quarter this cabbage, which means I'm not gonna take out the core or anything because I like it to stay together. I don't want it to be like this will cook for a while, and I don't want it to be all in tiny little pieces by the time it's cooked. So if I leave the stem in it, it'll hold all the pieces together until it's cooked. So I'm just going to take my knife and I'm just going to split the cabbage down in the middle. It's a huge cabbage, so turn around, and there you have it. So still with the core in it, and then the same thing. I'm just going to cut it right there in the middle of the core. Just like that.
This crock pot is full, so we are going to put a little bit of cabbage in, and then we are going to cook some of the cabbage separately.
Yeah, so this, because we don't have a lot of room, I'm going to just like quarter this.
Oh, and I love the cabbage. We just made this a few days ago, and the cabbage within the juices, so good.
So good.
And the vegetables shrink a lot too. So when the vegetables shrink, you can also add cabbage as this cooks.
And it is good. I don't like cabbage for the most part. I mean, I can't even think of one thing I could possibly like cabbage in, but this is like really, really good with cabbage, and how it cooks, it makes it taste like really good with the spices and the vegetables and such like that. And there you have it. Okay, so now I'm just gonna chop up the potatoes. I'm just gonna cube these.
What does cube mean?
You know, like, say like I wanted to make potatoes in the morning, you know, I'd chop little thin slices. You know, you can shred potatoes, you can mash potatoes, but in this case I'm going to make them into little square pieces. I'm not going to make them super small, but, you know, little cubes. So what I'm going to do is just cut the potato like this.
They're about 1/2 inch to inch pieces.
Yeah, and then I'm just going to cut those in half, quarter.
And honestly, this is better the second day.
Yeah, it does take some time to cook. I mean, you're looking at, I mean, the meat will be cooked, but it won't be tender for at least 24 hours. It'll kind of, you'll notice I've cooked it before and I've cooked it fast and tried to eat it for dinner, and the meat's really tough. It's, you know, it's not good until it's been cooked for some time.
At least 24 hours, and this will shrink, so you can add vegetables. I just want to reiterate that.
Okay, so now that I have all my vegetables in, I've got my potatoes, my carrots, my cabbage, my seasoning, my beef broth. Now what I'm gonna do is, because, you know, I don't know at first, so I just put 1 thing of beef broth so that it's not burning on the bottom, but I don't know at first how much water I'm gonna need. So the last thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna add water, and depending on how much water I need, then I'll know how much beef broth I should use, or beef stock, or whatever you wanna call it. I'm gonna use, so get something I can put water in. So okay, now Chloe's gonna add water, and we're just gonna keep adding water until it more or less fills up the crock pot in this case. And there you go, it's pretty much filled up. And so now I'm just gonna add a little bit of, take this off.
We need to pour it in here?
Yeah, I'm just gonna add, so I added about 2 cups, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of this, or I'm gonna let Chloe pour some of this in. And you can just be pretty liberal with this. It doesn't make any difference really how much you wanna just kind of pour it over the top. That's good, perfect. That's about 2 tablespoons, if you ask me, which is fine. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of garlic powder. And then I'm going to add about a teaspoon of, I'm gonna add about a teaspoon of salt. And I just guess, like I said, it's about a teaspoon. So add a teaspoon of salt.
So why do you add salt? You taught me this.
Salt, you know, to start, it'll increase your cooking temperature. Like when you're boiling water, you don't add salt to add flavor to your pasta or what have you. Add salt to increase your cooking temperature. Salt has electrolytes in it, and so that's what it does. It increases the boiling point of the water, so it gets hotter.
And the second thing it does.
Also what it does is it's hyperphilic to the cells, which means that there's more electrolytes outside the cell than inside the cell. So it also will pull water from your vegetables.
And it brings out the flavor in the vegetables.
Yeah, because it reduces the amount of the water content in your vegetables, which thus increases your flavor. It's still the same thing why you would reduce a sauce, is because you're taking out some of the water, which thus gives it more flavor.